So today we are in Tony's place, somewhere in the interior of Canaries. We're right next to the river, and we're happy to have with us David Henry. David is the founder of RETHINK Youth, and he will tell us exactly what RETHINK Youth is. And that's part of the series, that's part of the objective of this program as well, is to get us to rethink youth and the challenges that they have and the opportunities and so on. And so, David, it's certainly good to see you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me.
David, the last time we met on a couple of occasions, I think the first time I had a serious interaction with you, it had to do with football in Soufrière. And then we met with you talking about the Vetiver project recently in Canaries, and now we get to talk here again about youth. So, I mean, it's obvious from just those interactions that you've done a lot of work with youth and continue to do a lot of work with youth. So, first of all, let's try and give us a broad picture of Canaries. How active is the youth movement in Canaries?
Okay, so Canaries, as we all know, is a small fishing village, very beautiful, and the highlight of Canaries is actually its people. Canaries as a community, for the longest while, people have been, stereotyping Canaries to poverty. But in my belief is that Canaries is one of the most richest places that we have in St. Lucia. Mm-hmm. Youth activity is something that it hasn't been staggered. It's actually on a decline, in the sense that the leadership of the past and leadership now, youth leadership, youth-led, what it means to be youth-led, is to move away from the past of accepting what has been given to us, and now moving into knowing we have challenges. We as young people are going to be the ones who are going to inherit all of the consequences unless these challenges are tackled. And so you have young people who actually, want to take initiative, who want to take on challenges. Canaries as a community has been subjected to key youth, national and sub-national organizations, like you have the Youth and Sports Councils, you have the village councils, you have community clubs, when really young people in Canaries have been leading. Young people in Canaries have the power to lead. I created RETHINK Youth with the understanding and the belief that no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, no matter what socio-economic background, your religion, whatever gender you identify yourself with, you have a responsibility to make the world a better place for somebody else. And that is, your primary role as a person. That should be your primary role as a person. Young people have been taking on these initiatives. Young people have not been highlighted. And I have to commend a number of young leaders in Canaries. You can name folks like Dinali Louis. You can name folks like Lance Shepherd. You can name folks like Vernet Longville. You can name folks like Rick Leonti, who've actually, on their own, without knowing it, just out of wanting to show the presence of young people, through the churches, through the other institutions that form the status quo of the community. They've been leading young people, and young people have been driving a lot of movement forward in Canaries.
Mm-hmm. As you mentioned, that I know there's quite a lot of progress that youth in Canaries have made on a national scale as well. I mean, we were just talking off camera about dance. I know you've done exceptionally well in football, and you've done exceptionally well in basketball, and the youth who are doing exceptionally well at different levels at the OECS. There are a lot of the youth from Canaries who have gone in spite of circumstances and so on. You mentioned a very interesting word a while ago, leadership. What is being done? Because we have a lot of people who are volunteering and who are interested in and who have good intentions, but there's a dearth of leadership training. Is that one of the areas that you identified, and how can it be addressed?
Okay, so again, I come from a long line of youth leadership, and it started off with the Secret Sports Foundation, where the Secret Sports Foundation came into Canaries, realizing that when it comes to children and young people, Canaries, as you have highlighted, is number one community in sports, a number of successes, and Secret Sports values and uses sports as a tool to tackle the social issues that these young people and children face. using young people to drive the action forward. So I grew up in Sacred Sports as a young leader, moving into a senior youth coordinator. Moving out of Sacred Sports and moving into other community organizations like the Canaries Youth and Sports Council, where I must say I probably wasn't, my style of leadership, maybe, people wasn't fond of it, because all I did really as a president is to work with my council and give them the opportunity to lead while I facilitate. Being 28 years old, I understand I only have a few more years in the youth game, and the baton has to be handed over to the next generation of leaders to come. And so the young people in the council were taking on their own initiative, their own fundraising, their own sports programs, and Canaries was getting somewhere. You have groups like Can't Beats, musical group, was soon to replace the Merry Makers combo. And again, young folks at the end of it. You have Twisted Dance Group, a number of young girls, including boys, get involved in the aspect of dance, cultural aspect of dance. And, we have to have appreciation for it. That is, our culture. So, one of the key things was getting these groups registered. And I was very instrumental in getting these groups registered. I founded RETHINK Youth as a means of collaborating among all groups. Leadership is something that is very important. And so anybody would know that I come from a World Economic Forum contingent of young leaders called the Global Shapers. And Global Shapers are everywhere. We are young people who are committed and concerned about changing the state of our communities, changing the state of our countries, and changing the state of the world through local action. And within the Global Shapers, we have a contingent of young people called social shifters. We use social enterprise as a means of sustainably, doing activities and engaging young people, and building leadership among young people. In my time traveling to World Economic Forum events and other global events, networking is key. And I was very fortunate through my football to land in Ireland and to meet with EBSI Exports Academy and speaking with the executive director of that institute. And he was very, keen to partner with us to offer leadership training, continuous professional development training, and continuous professional development because we have had the education, secondary school, tertiary. We move into jobs, and what the education system does not teach us is how to deal with people, which is where the business profits and moving and driving a business forward comes in. And so RETHINK Youth is finished dialogue, and we're going to now put on a roster of summer programs, virtual programs aimed at working with already existing youth organizations. So you have the NYC, District Youth and Sports Council, as well as local groups, as well as key individuals within the communities taking their own personal strides and leading. And so we're going to have a series of leadership workshops, leaderships on all aspects, especially women leadership. Many people don't understand the critical role that women play in developing a community, developing a household, and in developing a future generation to come. And so if you look at many of the programs that I've got involved with, and I learned that through the Sacred Sports Foundation. Every time the Sacred Sports Foundation does something, 50% participation female, 50% participation male. And I tend to keep that as a policy moving forward through all of our programs.
It's quite an inspiration to see how active women's football is, because you have quite a few players on the national team as well. So that is a big inspiration. Do youth have a seat and an effective role? For example, there's a Canaries Community Improvement Foundation. I know that's one. I don't know if there are any other organizations that have some mandate for the development of Canaries, but are the youth getting a voice in there?
Ideally, so at the Canaries Community Improvement Foundation, my role specifically is to engage young people.
So you're on that committee?
Or
the
part
of the foundation, yes.
Specifically with a role to engage young people. Organizations need to learn that we're moving from a point where volunteerism has been the thing of the past, and that every organization should move into social enterprise. And the social aspect of it is creating sustainable opportunities for young people through providing services, giving them the skills to be able to help the organization, and in return, they receive some form of remuneration, some form of skill that they could use on their own to earn some remuneration.
So you're saying volunteerism is a thing of the past, that you're saying that you've written it off, or there's still possibilities?
Volunteerism is key because volunteerism is the mentality. Regardless whether you're receiving remuneration or not, the key thing, what every young person should keep in mind is that if you're not open to wanting to do it for free, the opportunities to be remunerated might not happen. And like the number of young people you would see, you would realize that for the past 5 years, it's been a contingent of 35 young people in Canaries who are always actively engaged on anything: sports, job opportunities, job skills, opportunities, just to go out and to travel and, to receive some kind of spotlight. 35. Canaries is a small community, and you need a contingent of young people who have the capacity to move forward, and it's all about facilitating them. Canaries Community Improvement Foundation, I must say, has been in a very fortunate position with the EBA project ongoing. ICA has been working very diligently with them. I Am Movement have been working very diligent with them, all the way from Trinidad, to ensure that young people are getting involved. Young people are learning about climate change, climate adaptation, how to make your communities, how to make your country on the whole more resilient towards climate change. The British High Commission has been I remember the British High Commission putting out a grant, and we applied for it for stabilizing the river banks, right immediate banks to the dam, simply because when it rains, we have no water in the community, sometimes for 2 weeks, sometimes for 3 weeks, especially if there's a trough or major hurricane. And, to solve that problem, all it took was a few members of RETHINK Youth walking up that river, which we're right next to, finding what is the cause of that problem. And when we found it, it's all about putting a solution in place. Thankfully, for the British High Commission, I Am Movement, and CCIF, in 2018 for the establishment of the Vetiver Network West Indies, St. Lucia was selected as a country to do some documentary on a needs base of vetiver solution, and how can you could create an economy out of it to create jobs and livelihoods, and also to mitigate climate change, and that was received well. We had the British High Commission, we had Lord John Rundle from the House of Lords in the UK Parliament to come and to visit the site, to get involved in tree planting, and that was an absolute blessing. And the young people who were there, all of the young people involved, so young and learning, taking on all these initiatives, not subjecting themselves just to sports, but to actually getting involved. Canaries, however, I must say, is a community where a lot of negativity has really hindered development. I grew with a mentality that I am from the Kektil generation. I'm very aware that young people in St. Lucia do not have what it takes to stand up against government when they create policies that affect young people. We had COVID-19. We had emergency, I forgot what the name was, NEMAC, I think it was. And you ask yourself, is there anybody under the age of 30 seated at the NEMAC table representing solely the interests of young people? So when the government says we're going to shut down schools, is there a young person to say, okay, cool, we want to shut down schools? But listen, what is in place for young people who don't have internet access? What is in place for young people who don't have devices to access the school material? What is in place for young people who are in the school feeding programs who will now be at home and whose parents might not be able to afford? And these are the realities, right? We have now situations where people are getting older. So the older people are living longer, and we have the number of young people, kind of increasing. And, back in the past, people died a bit younger, and so inheritance of a house, inheritance of land, And now what we have is, older folks needing their assets, young people not moving into the traditional roles like agriculture, providing food for the communities, fishing for the communities. I must say I'm very proud of Canaries fishermen for ensuring that there is fish out all the time.
But do you have the young persons taking an
Very
interest
young
in-
fishermen, very young fishermen. Agriculture.
But are they coming in at what level? Because sometimes you want to see the younger fishermen coming in, but with a backing of technology, some kind of a depth to fishing.
So again, if young people do not have the skills to deal with people, and which is the reason why a number of young people cannot get jobs. A business owner will come to you, or HR manager will have an interview with you, and they will say to you, what can you bring to my organization? What can you bring to us? And the average young person would say, well, I have good communication skills. I have good time management. All of the basic things you need to actually qualify for an interview. You know what I mean? You're not going to get a young person who's going to say, well, you know what? I'm very good at negotiation skills. You go to a shoe store with all the Syrians. You come there and you're expecting a young person to look at you and say, well, you know what? Boy, you look like, yeah, man, I've got some nice tuck shoes for you, man. $200 and something. Even though the price is, $180. $200 and something just for you, man. And you say, well, my budget doesn't suit that. You say, well, what does your budget suit? We have something for you.
So
You have
whose
engaged the
responsibility is
person.
that in a case like this? Is it, and I wanted to drag in the NYC in there, does it have an impact on the community? And also those kind of soft skills that you talk about, they're supposed to get it in schools, but is that something that RETHINK Youth, for example, focuses on?
Okay, so 100%, this is something that we focus on in a sense that we know that we're not going to instantly be given the opportunity to impact it. So we need to reach out to, small grant institutions. We need to reach out to agencies who have the interest. We need to reach out to international funders to tackle these things. However, RETHINK Youth understands that young people, as much as they have the power, they have the political will, they make up the political majority of solution. The sooner young people open their minds to that, the sooner they can understand that we can come together and to hold government accountable to all of the horrible decisions that they have made and that they will continue to make, whoever is the government.
So
that affects the young people.
Is that a conversation that youth were having with the political parties? Because we know they wanted youth involved in the campaigns, be part of the motorcades and be part of just probably for the theatrics and so on. At that time, were youth having that conversation with the potential candidates that these are some of the key things? We're not just in there just to create theater for you, but we're there because we want you to give us something in return. So what are youth expecting and what are they demanding of these politicians?
So I'll bring it back to not too long ago. I'm actually part of a UNICEF and AstraZeneca Young Leaders Program. And ideally, 10 of us from around the world were selected to be the voice for young people in the advocating of engaging young people in policy making. When it comes to parties, it's all about policies. Labour have their policies. The United Workers' Party have their policies. The question is, how can young people translate what you're promising to the language of young people? And I will use, for example, we have a Ministry of Youth Development and Sports, and we have a ministry with youth economy, whatever that is, I don't know.
I was about to ask you because I don't know if it's been sold to youth across St. Lucia, but from somebody from your own perspective, what's your understanding of what the youth economy is?
So apparently, again, the World Economic Forum empowers us, the global shapers. St. Lucia has about 23 global shapers who has access to a curated feed of the latest research, latest articles, latest findings concerning a number, some 700 global issues from around the world, and how each issue is linked to another. And I understand fully that when you speak about a youth economy, you're not just talking about youth unemployment, you're not just talking about youth health, You're talking about how 50 years is going to connect the past 70 years, and all along the line, that timeline, youth development, and youth moving forward, and youth moving backward. And a number of young people, and a lot of young people pride themselves in the basic job, and they feel comfortable in the basic job, and they feel comfortable with any government. And I would like to go back to the words of Mario Michel, former Minister for Education, when he said, if the young people are happy with government, there is a problem with the young people. And if the young people are not happy with the government, then there is a problem with the government. And no young person should be happy with any government, because as the young person, no matter whether the government does nothing and the new one comes in and does a lot of things, you as a young person should always want more. Yes, thank you, we appreciate that. We want to support you, but you have to understand, as a politician, us young people, we want more. What we have, and when I say that, I speak on an NYC level. I speak on District Youth and Sports Council level. I speak on a village council level, constituency council level. And my thing is, through the Kectil program, with mentorship from guys like Martin Luther King III and the founder of Kectil, Sherry Knowles, I know fully well, and that is myself and a number of developing country young leaders all across the world. We know very well what to expect from good governance. I would never subject one government to poor governance and the other to good governance. When you look at the progression of the St. Lucia people in a real life situation, I have traveled to football in Europe many times. I will leave for a year, I come back after 1 year. On any given night at 8 p.m. in the night, I come to the Canary Square and I get the same set of people. I could go for 10 years and I will come back at 8 p.m. in the Canary Square. I will see the same people. And that says a lot about the growth of the community and young people moving forward.
So, is there progress that we can count, that we can identify as positives that happened for the youth movement? And can you explain as well why we, after 35 years, still don't have a national youth policy?
Okay, so I'll tell you. Moving forward, looking at Canaries youth-wise, is there a good example of youth work going on? Yes. You find that in Can Beats, you find that in Twisted Dance Group, and you find that in RETHINK Youth, which is why they are the only 3 active youth organizations at the moment in the community of Canaries, driving a lot of action. Twisted has been donating a number of stuff to the preschools, primary schools, to the infant schools. They have been engaging the children in Reading Month. You have Can Beats with a number of young children learning music, going to the schools playing. The young children have their little, their vlogs, and it's so good to see young people taking the advantage of getting into the digital media world.
So are these organizations progressing because they have strong leadership, or they're getting strong support from central government?
They have strong leadership. Central government, I must say, for the community of Canaries, has been let down. They have been letting us down a lot. It's so easy to sit down with a politician and to say, hey, listen, we're in a community, we're doing this, we're doing that. And they will say, oh, yes, we want to support you. And I've seen it both sides. It's been what? How many months since elections? 2 months, 3 months since elections?
From July to September.
Nothing has changed, And so these young people understand, well, while they have the position, they might come forward and assist. But what we're doing is not dependent on them.
Is it a case where we need to get the youth presenting positions? Because I was speaking with, even with the NYC about there should have been a youth manifesto that you present to the governments. Is it a case where the youth now have to present the positions?
You see, the voice of young people can only be strengthened through advocacy. And advocacy communication is very serious, very important. If the young person, like myself, could sit down and strategize how best to get young people to make Canaries alive, as the president, work with young people to facilitate them in the Youth and Sports Council. Let them plan. As the president, they need resources. You beg, borrow, you steal sometimes to ensure that they have their sausage sale at football. They have their fundraising. That is key. Not telling them what to do. That's not leadership. Telling a young person what to do is not leadership. Sitting down with a young person and saying, hey, listen, we need to fundraise. What ongoing activities happen in the community? Who can we approach to say, hey, we know you have this going on. We are the Youth and Sports Council and we like to do a little fundraising, you know? How to go and, you know, interact with stakeholders. It's not just about bringing young people together for fun, you know, for these things. Bringing young people together to share ideas, to share their problems. And I sit down sometimes, and one of the things one of the aspects of leadership is listening. Many people who claim to be leaders don't listen. Young people are creative. Young people think out of the box, and young people have the positive power and energy to drive things going. When I say I want to do something, I will not depend on somebody who does not have that same interest or does not have that same desire to want to see things moving forward. And leaders need to learn. Sometimes you might not get anybody interested, and that's okay. But you need to ensure that that positive action, positive initiative, positive program that will benefit the community, benefit young people, even if they don't know it. You know, for no matter, in Canaries we have 1 million division barriers. Politics, you have church, you have family feuds, you know. Even among the youth groups, at the point in time we had youth groups, 40 youth groups, who's the best youth group? And you know we have a small group of people. So many people are involved in multiple groups. And you have that feud, and it does not serve or help the youth situation. I'm very happy now to see that, you know, groups have cemented their core and they're taking on initiative. They're writing proposals. I must say, however, as a global shaper and as a social shifter, these organizations need to move from just doing to moving into how to monetize what you're doing.
So in that case, two things I wanted to deal with, the youth economy. Should the youth economy just be a blank sheet, and then youth are invited now to give their ideas as to what they would like to see in the concept of youth economy?
Okay, so the youth economy basically is any economy. How does it serve young people? How can young people move into the various economies and drive the economies forward?
And how do you measure it as well?
So how do you measure? So you measure the youth economy by, I'm sure when you listen to Parliament, you hear about unemployment rates, you hear about new entrepreneurs, you hear about programs. So for example, I'm sure you're very well aware with the Taiwanese government supporting young people in agriculture. This is, that's how you measure the success of young people and a youth economy. How can you transform something? So for example, just thinking off the top of my head, and it's something that I have shared with politicians in the past, both red and yellow. Nothing has been done about it, okay? We have a beautiful coastline. And again, CCIF is trying. But then politicians and organizations like this need to understand that to drive these opportunities, these movements forward, it cannot be adult-led. Adults within this community especially, and within St. Lucia, are most times not open. You know, it's like you have it my way or there is no way.
So there's a disconnect between the youth
There
and
is a huge disconnection between youth government and local
those who are
NGOs.
leading at this moment.
And so to break that barrier, they need to understand that young people need to be at the beginning, at the center, and at the end of everything that they do. Because the generation, the future of the country lives on. I like to turn to the education system. COVID-19 now, what have we done? Donate devices. So more children are now on TikTok. You have Zoom online classes now. Teachers are frustrated. Children don't, you get a TikTok message on your new tablet. You're gonna open the TikTok message. You're young, children do that. Exams now are becoming easier, so I'm not sure what the children are learning, Learning online is difficult. People who do their bachelor's and masters will tell you, looking at a computer screen and reading and comprehending can sometimes be challenging amidst all of your daily distractions. How can we guarantee that we have young people who are actually growing with the knowledge in entrepreneurship, in business, in management, actually building the capacity to move into leading their district youth and sports council, maybe their constituency council, maybe going up as a politician to represent the community.
I was about to ask you about that too, because to be fair, they've had representatives from Canaries and ancillary who are indigenous from the community,
yes.
But also we've had some people who've come in to. What's the view of youth on that? Would they, and I know a solution is a solution, you can go in any part of solution and run and so on, but what is the youth view on having somebody who's not from your community representing you?
Okay, so ideally, again, I believe that any person who's going up and representing a political party is subjected to or is obligating to first accomplish their deeds in accordance to the party policies, which doesn't necessarily mean in the interest of young people, doesn't necessarily mean in the interest, of tackling the problems that we have in our community. And again, I will move to the development of a bridge. I listen to people red and yellow speak as a young leader, and sometimes I wonder, if these things are not basic, what is the basic rule or requirement of government to people? You have a politician come in, government comes, delivers a bridge, but you have a river that usually overflows, and sometimes the bridge gets damaged, like what happened in Canaries. The government comes and they give you a bridge, which is the basic role of government to ensure that there is passageways, infrastructure. So it's a basic role of government. And then for the politician now to come on TV and to say that I, whoever the rep is, gave you a bridge, or I, whoever the rep is, gave you a playing field, all of which are, the bare basic, facilities that every community should have, So as a young person who grew up in, all these global leadership opportunities and programs, I actually, my passion for young people started off with football. I played football in Canaries. Young children in Canaries saw that I had the capacity to move forward. In that time, all I could have done, and I didn't know what life had in store for me until I met the Sacred Sports Foundation, who really taught me that sports is not just about winning, but it's about how you win. So, moving from just playing to coaching young kids. And sometimes, and again, I continue to reach out to the Football Association, myself and the president. I remember I said to you, I go hard at leaders because I'm very passionate about young people. And some of the things that I see, I just cannot side with. But I always continue to reach out to the Football Association. I will not stop calling them out. You have to do the right things, and I'll always represent the best interests of players, and just the development solution through football moving forward.
From what you're suggesting, obviously there has to be this connection and also this constant dialogue between those who make the decisions and are in a position to influence decisions and youth who are sometimes disconnected and not associated with.
We speak about youth in politics.
As you mentioned that, the youth arms of these political parties, are they effective in representing youth issues?
So they're not. They're actually not.
So why do we have them then?
I can guarantee that 100%. Again, it's about trying to be popular in a political party.
So is it that they're using youth as a prop? Or?
Again, you look at these organizations like NYC, you look at the youth arms, it's all about ambitious young people.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Youth who are ambitious.
But however, it's even more important to serve the interests of young people. And so, for example, I remember having many dialogues with politicians, and I say to them, listen, look at all of these young people here, right? Your government has been there for 5 years, or your government has been there for 3 years, or 1 year. How many of you young people have been engaged? And I look around and I was like, okay, first question. How many of you young people have been engaged by the minister or wherever, maybe an opportunity to receive some kind of remuneration, maybe a contract or something? So you ask any of the group leaders, and I don't know it to be illegal, where you have community groups, community organizations struggling to fundraise, to get initiatives for the development of a constituency or community. And then you have retaining wall contracts, desilting the river contracts of 80-something thousand, 50 to 100 and something, $1 million, where part of that cannot be given to a youth and sports council. It cannot be given to a community group so that they can have resources, to do more in the community.
Yeah, because I've always felt, I remember when there was the issue with desilting in Ancillary, for example, and the sand was being sold to somebody else, that to me, these are resources from the community. The sand is a resource, and the proceeds of those resources should go to youth groups and the community. At least a major part of those proceeds.
I agree with that 100%. And again, you see, when these things happen and no one says nothing about it, and I'm going to tell you.
So is it on the youth now? Because you mentioned that you've stressed continuously the disconnect. Is it on the youth now to strive harder, be more strategic in getting their views and voices heard or influencing decisions? Or are you thinking that it's the politicians who have to?
No, it is. So ideally, young people need to understand the power they have of being young. Young people are powerful, and young people are the only people who could change the poverty situations that our communities have at the moment. They are the majority, all right? You see, when young people understand that, as a young person, I, David Henry, could create a movement, could connect with, let's say, hotels like East Winds, in the job creation for people, in the skills learning, where in that very same project, and Rethink Youth through the High Commission project, the remuneration towards the people who participated from the organization, part of their remuneration was taken aside to get equipment. So we got podcast sets, we got camcorders, and other basic devices that we're going to need for the programming moving forward. We got projectors, and we got a laptop. And so now, Rethink Youth is in a position to work with that institution in Ireland and to provide the job skills that the organization will provide the certificate for, because we will be teaching their material, right? So now it's about connecting, advocacy communication, connecting the stakeholders to provide, resources, what we're going to teach. Everybody who's going to get involved, even the young people themselves, to understand why they need the job skills, why they need these soft skills, and to now come together and plan a youth leadership summit. 1 weekend, 1 week, online, virtual, no matter what it is, where young people can learn these things. Moving again, our motto in St. Lucia is the land of people of light. And sometimes I ask myself, is there a future for the people of this land? Are they going to see the light? When are they going to see the light? And that can only happen when the people understand that they have the power. You see, if every young person was to think like me, St. Lucia, hunger would not happen. Because I understand, and the many young people who get involved in the projects understand. At no point in time should you just be seated at your home unless you're ready to rest. 2021, we cannot do that. Already, a number of dropouts. COVID-19 coming, many people lost their jobs. A number of jobs are being created in the tech center. We're looking at artificial intelligence. So soon, while young people are struggling to secure jobs, for a longevity where their job is to deal with people, while they're struggling to do that, we're moving into a time where it's all about, working with robotics now. Do we have the schooling in St. Lucia to move into artificial intelligence? We have service providers, we have people who provide, what about 5G? What about the Internet of Things? What is the youth perspective on these things? How does, topics such as food security affect education? How does that interconnect with young people? If young people are not educated, there isn't in the school curriculum where young people understand the importance of agriculture, the importance of getting involved, with nature, caring for the nature, the use of trees, Plant a fruit tree in the back of your yard. You want some guavas, over time it produces guavas, you go and eat guavas, The more young people get to understand that, the actions they do today can impact or change what happens in the future.
Do you get an opportunity as a young person, and I know we've just changed the government, even in the past government, to interact with the representatives and even with this government? Have Youth in Canaries met with the new district reps and so on to articulate those very same things that you're saying?
To my knowledge, you see, again, leadership, that's where the challenge is in leadership.
Because your organization can certainly drive that.
Again, young people need to understand we need to move from the bossed generation to the unbossed generation. The unbossed generation is something coined by a gentleman named Vas Narashadan. And all it is young people who do not care about the titles, young people who do not care about having power over others, and young people who do not care about climbing the corporate ladder. The sooner young people could understand that we need to raise the unbossed generation, we need to raise the Kektil generation, we need to raise the Global Shapers community, we need to raise the World Youth Alliance teachings, the awareness of human dignity. We need to raise the inputs of young people in Parliament. And if nobody wants to give us an opportunity, we need to create it for ourselves.
And so you have that powerful position.
So for example,
yes.
RETHINK Youth now have gotten the equipment and we're moving into something called virtual Parliament. And what that will be is key speeches to Parliament where young people from around St. Lucia, and hopefully, we can spread out regional wide with organizations like One Young World, the Global Shapers World Economic Forum, where young people could actually, produce speeches to Parliament, indicating the problems in their communities, what they want to hear. We don't want to hear about Hansard and go and check Hansard there for corruption this and for corruption that. We don't want to hear about that. We want to hear about parliamentary representatives coming to the house and saying, I received a letter from this, so and so, saying that, the river in Canaries used to be so beautiful, and then tourists used to come up to the waterfall and stuff like that. Now in my community, nobody goes up the waterfall. The average person who could have, earned $1 with taking a hike with the tourists can't get out again. The bread company, Springs Bakeries down, Can the government support organizations, businesses like that who create jobs for people in the community? Can the Prime Minister, can people, contribute?
Are the youth willing to submit those proposals? Do they have those proposals in hand? I guess, like you say, the organization is specializing in drafting proposals as well. Because they will need to submit it.
Based on assessment, we have understand that a lot of young people are not open, are not open to the issues affecting them, and some of them are, and they do not believe in themselves that they can actually affect the change. Most people would say, yeah, but we always see that every year. It's coming back to the policy draft. I don't know why that is not a topic at youth parliament. I mean, it needs to be debated, and this is the reason why. So I wrote to global youth parliaments, and I said to them, listen, we need your programming in St. Lucia. We need to have some training young people actually in presentation and presenting in parliament, this sort of stuff, and maybe even to moving into our own parliament, if our voices are not welcome and not acknowledged by government. And they were more than happy to open a St. Lucia office. So we have Global Youth Parliament St. Lucia, where Rethink Youth now is moving into reaching out to young people. Now the key benefits of it, and it has to remain, every young person who writes a speech, that speech goes into a book. And that book is going to be named whatever amount of speeches made into the book, that number of key speeches to change the country. And that book is going to be published, right? Other key things is we're hoping that government do understand the role of young people in government. We are not asking that, just to please the young people, that the political parties invest in someone who's under 30 to be in the house. We're not asking that. All we're simply asking is for young people to be at the beginning, at the center, and at the end of the decision-making process.
All right, David, my final question has, and I think you mentioned it earlier, has to do with, you've covered the environment and so on, I was looking at that, but the culture and the creative industries. Canaries has a very strong tradition. You have Eliza Markey, you have Eliza Markey, you have, you mentioned Merrymakers a while ago, you have Itation. There's been a lot of, and you mentioned there's a new group coming up, you've had Twisted representing as well.
100%.
For the culture part of it, you had a strong tradition. Do you sense that that's something that youth are interested in getting involved in, especially with somebody like Markey, who was instrumental in writing folk songs and so on?
Okay, so...
and for quickly, is there like a Lawas group in this community?
So there is. Slowly, again, these traditions are dying. And I want to commend the infant and primary schools for keeping that tradition alive. COVID-19 has been a challenge, and so even COVID-19 adds to that discouragement moving forward. Culture is actually what you want to make it. Culture is what you decide that you want to accept as a group of people living together. Steel pan is not our culture. It's Trinidad, along that region. It's their culture. But however, our culture is in music, dance, and expression. And to have a young group from Canaries, again, one, learning music. Two, being able to perform the music, whether it's through the instrument or whether it's through their bodies. It's a natural art. And it's a gift. Not anybody can do it. It can be learned, and for many people, through physical disability, for mental disability, cannot, and that has to be valued. It's one of the key things keeping young people together at the moment. It's so easy as a young person to leave your home highly spirited and to take 2 steps onto the main road on already that high spiritness has been dampened. 2 steps on the road. It's so easy as a young person. All you have to do is walk outside, see your neighbor just sitting down on the steps like this, thinking about life, Maybe she hasn't had a job in years, maybe she cannot get a job, maybe there's a hunger situation in her home. And you look there and you just, it just hits you. It just just slaps you in the face. It's very difficult to get young leaders who understand the situations, who make time to meet, liaise with these people, who stoop down to their level on a humanitarian and human dignity level, and to say to them, hey, listen, come get involved in the steel pan. You know, the culture itself addresses mental health. I will tell you, there is not one female who walks into Canaries without being sexually harassed by majority of the males. It is not a pleasant thing. You can read the body language of most women, most young girls, some of them even underage, overdeveloped, but underaged, you know? And just to get away from that, parents look at their children overgrown and think that they could speak to them the same way they speak to grown-ups. And so these children from a young age have never learned to value themselves, value their dignity. The confidence lacks. They become solely dependent on the energy that they get from somebody else. And if, they're that vulnerable emotionally, socially, mentally, and spiritually, it's so easy to take advantage of them, especially the young women. And, I remember mentioning it at Youth and Sports Council meeting when they elected a new council. Sugar daddy awareness. It is a serious thing. It happens. We have our young girls growing up too fast, getting involved in all sorts of stuff. STDs, teenage pregnancy, dropouts in school, increasing way too much.
David, it seems like you Rethink Youth has quite a full agenda, full plate of issues to deal with.
Again?
And we're running out of time. We want to thank you, but we want to certainly keep connected with you, and especially I like what you mentioned about the Youth Parliament and so on, that we certainly want to be aware of what's going on. But it's a challenge, but we like the energy, and we like what's happening in Canaries, and we're hoping that this can spill over into other communities as well. But we appreciate the time that you're giving us.
All right. Thank you very much for having me as well.
And let's stay in touch.
All right. Definitely.